Well, let's go to the defense. You ready for that?
Let's do it.
All right. Defense. Yards per play. When yards per play allowed. Mm-hmm. They had 5.4 last year, 5.6 this year.
Well, a little more, but that's to be expected. When you have 8 starters out versus last year, you know, that's to be expected.
Yeah, you were 14th last year. You were 20th this year.
Right.
Yards per play. Points per game was a massive leap. Mm-hmm. Last year, the Broncos were under 20 at 19.8. They were top 10. Mm-hmm. This year, 27.9, 25th in the league.
Yeah.
So despite having the number one red zone touchdown percentage in the NFL for back-to-back seasons, they were giving up some big explosive plays that were ultimately into touchdowns. And again, you know, some of this was the offense putting their defense in bad position too.
Part of it was the offense putting the defense in bad position with turnovers. Part of it is the fact you got rookie corners back there. Remember Claypool torching Ojemudia?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's part of the big play let up right there. You got rookie corners back there, and you figure that'll improve from year to year.
Rushing per game. So points per game, obviously, significantly down. Rushing per game. The Broncos gave up 130 rushing yards per game this year. That was 25th. Last year, 111. So took a little bit of a step back. But again, defensive line, you're playing with a lot of backups there in the interior, especially as the season wore on.
Part of that is teams with leads running the ball to eat the clock up on you, though.
Sure.
That's a little bit different. I always hated that. I always hated the rushing yards per game thing because a lot of that's game situational.
Yeah. Passing per game. Last year, they gave up 225, which was 11th best, which is pretty good. This year, they gave up 237, 16th. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of a drop off there, but not anything you're freaking out about. Last year, interceptions. This year, interceptions, exactly the same, 10. Fumble recoveries. Last year, they had 7. This year, they had 6. As we mentioned, their takeaways, pretty much in lockstep. What does that tell you? Because that was sort of a little bit of the calling card of the Vic Fangio defense. Like, we try to get pressure with those front four, and we're going to try to get a lot of takeaways. In Chicago, he definitely got a lot of takeaways. That was one of the things that we were all pretty excited about here. Has not really translated just yet.
Haven't been able to get the pressure. Bradley Chubb hurt last year. Von Miller took some time to adjust, and then your entire defensive line was out most of this year. You lost Mike Purcell halfway through the season. Shelby Harris was out for about half the season. Jarrell Casey was out early. You lost Von Miller before the season. You know, I think a lot of that is you're not able to get as much consistent pressure. I think that's the problem there. I think that overall, if Vic can get a healthy front five, then those turnovers start to come. And if those turnovers start to come, that's extra possessions for an offense. And all of a sudden, we're talking about wins instead of losses.
So it's interesting that the Broncos were top 10 in sacks. We mentioned that earlier in the show. 42 sacks. They were 9th in the league. Last year, they only had 2 fewer sacks, and they were 17th. So it's kind of an interesting change in the NFL this year that 42 sacks makes you a top 10 team, but 40 sacks makes you in the bottom half.
Yeah, that is interesting. Sack numbers vary year to year, I guess, around the league. I didn't realize it was that wide a swing.
I didn't think it was either. Red zone percent. Let's go to third down. Third down, this is the last couple here. Third down percentage given up. Last year, 37.4, which was 13th. This year, 40%, which was 15th. So not a massive difference there. 3%, 2.5% basically, and you moved a couple of spots. So a little bit of you gave up a little bit more
but
this
that's
year.
To be expected. Again, you had 8 starters out and rookie corners across the board.
And then finally, red zone touchdown percentage. You were number 1 in the league back-to-back years. But what's interesting about that is, and maybe just a bit indicative of what the season has been around the league, you only gave up 39% touchdown conversion last year, and that jumped all the way to 47.5%. So it's a pretty massive jump, yet you were still number 1.
That is incredible. That shows how good that defense was last year. But again, I mean, you had some good play from the veterans for a while there. Bouye didn't play as bad as people thought he did, and Callahan was at a Pro Bowl level. But when you get that many rookies out there playing, it's going to be a problem, especially in the NFL.
So for all the hand-wringing and griping about special teams, they were the second best team at one thing in the league. Second best thing.
Punt return.
Punt return average. Yeah. Yes. Punt return average, 13.4.
Yeah.
Second best in the NFL. It's pretty good.
That makes sense.
I mean, that's something. I don't know if that's enough for Tom
Spencer
McMahon
was
or
good.
anything.
He busted at 1, and that's gonna add to the total. So
But again, you've been looking for explosive in your punt return. You finally got a touchdown. What was the first one since 2015, right? Mm-hmm. I think because they had
Bolden,
yeah. Ridiculous. But otherwise, pretty average to below average across the board. Kickoff returns especially. Oof.
Yeah, that's the problem with me, was the kick returns were bad, and then the coverage units were bad. And I don't know what was going on with Brandon McManus, but the last
towards the tail
third
end
of the season, he kind of had the yips, man. He missed some.
You wonder if
some of that was, the absurdly long field goal, that kind of stuff, whatever. But he was missing some things that he normally doesn't miss.
You wonder if COVID had it, because remember, he did have a positive in there. So
yeah, I don't know if it looked like he tweaked something or something, because he was pushing the ball, and it looked different.